So in warfare, there's this thing that happens called friendly fire. And friendly fire is excruciatingly painful to even think about, let alone go through it. I can't even imagine how terrible it would be where you're shooting at your own soldiers. And Jocko Willink, who is one of my heroes, literally love that guy so much, inspires me beyond words. Check out his books, check out his podcast. He's just incredible. He actually talks about this in a TED Talk. He also writes about this in some of his books, where he was in Iraq and his Navy SEALs, so he's a Navy SEAL commander, were actually firing at other Navy SEALs, and it led to a catastrophic outcome. And what usually happens is it's some sort of line of sight issue where all you see is the gunfire. You can't see that this gunfire is coming from a friendly soldier. And so you think that it's the enemy, and you start reacting as if it's the enemy. And you're making war against what is actually your friend, whenever in reality, this is a soldier that would lay down their life for you and is there to protect you. And after working with thousands of people suffering with anxiety and panic attacks and depersonalization, realization, and irrational fears and intrusive thoughts and existential fear and rumination and health anxiety and just this long list of symptoms. And also after having gone through so many symptoms myself for many years, I can tell you that we get involved in friendly fire, metaphorically speaking, with the symptoms of fight, flight, freeze response. And the reason, or I should say a reason, because there's a lot of reasons that we do this, is because we haven't been educated. We're not teaching people how their nervous system operates, especially as kids. We have a class on the mitochondria of a cell, but we don't even teach people about how their own nervous system works from a practical, experiential perspective, right? We can dissect a frog, we can learn calculus, but we're not teaching our kids how their nervous system works. That's a whole nother thing that I won't go down that road. But it's extremely problematic because all of a sudden, kids start to experience these symptoms, and maybe you're an adult before you experience them. But regardless of whether it's whenever you're a kid or an adult, you start to experience these symptoms and you weren't educated about it, and you feel like you're dying. Say you're having a panic attack, or you feel out of your body, depersonalized, or you feel derealized, everything becomes fake and dreamlike, or people look like robots, or you look in the mirror, you see a stranger. All of a sudden your memory is completely off and time feels distorted and all these symptoms are happening. And you have no idea what they are. And so whenever you feel these terrifying symptoms and you've not been properly educated and it feels like death itself, what are you going to do? You're going to assume that the symptoms are the enemy. And you're going to start to fire away at the symptoms. You're going to try to directly get rid of the symptoms. I've got this symptom problem, and I'm going to spend all of my time trying to get rid of these symptoms. But what I will tell you is that as hard as it is to believe, as terrifying as these symptoms are, they are actually your friend. And in the appropriate context, these symptoms could save your life. Let's look at fight or flight response, which is the pop culture terms or anxiety and panic attacks, which is fine, but I don't really like those terms because it's not really reflective of what's going on. This is technically even deeper, is a threat response. This is your body going into a threat response when there is no threat. And I don't think the labels are very helpful. They can be from an education perspective, but they end up not being very helpful because we think that we've got this anxiety and panic attack problem, which communicates that the symptoms are the problem whenever they're really not. But with fight or flight response, if you were, let's use an extreme example. If you're in the African jungle and there's a lion and you are empowered in your body to fight that lion or to flee from that lion, that's really helpful. Depends on how big the lion is. I know that I personally would be able to take out a lion regardless of how big that it is because of how huge these oh crap, they're not big at all. They're actually little BBs, little BB gun, little pea shooters. Anyway, but seriously, that would help you. Your heart rate is going up and your thoughts are moving quicker and adrenaline's pumping through your bloodstream and muscle tension and all this stuff, and you're hyper aware of everything, so that way you can know where to escape. That would help you and could even save your life, assuming that you are able to either fight or flee from the lion. But let's say that you can't fight or flee and you fall to the ground. Well, you're going to go into the most ancient autonomic defense mechanism, which is called the freeze response. And the freeze response is designed to convey to a predator that you're dead because you're frozen. It's also called the freeze response. I think I just said that. Yeah. It's a trauma response, freeze response. It's also called the immobilization response. There's like 10,000 names. But in hopes that the predator loses interest and walks away, because predators prioritize a prey that put up a fight. And so if you're just like, okay, that's kind of scary, I'll never do that again. But if you play dead, then that increases your chances of survival. But just in case that lion doesn't walk away, your body might start to trigger these dissociative symptoms called depersonalization, realization, just to help you in case the lion decides to eat you. You'll feel disconnected from your body. You'll feel disconnected from the material world, possibly too, which is derealization. And especially if the lion doesn't walk away, anxiety and panic will actually shut off. There's a deep state of trauma where there actually is no anxiety and panic. You're just completely numb and dissociated, and that's technically where the lion doesn't believe that you're dead, and 10 other lions show up to carry you off to the lion's den. There's no point of having anxiety or panic, fight or flight symptoms in that state. That's why people who say that depersonalization, realization are a symptom of anxiety, I work with people all the time that are in technically what's called state 4 severe trauma. They have no anxiety at all. They're completely numb. So what do you tell to those people, right? That's why having proper understanding is extremely important, right? So anyway, with that being said, in the appropriate context, these symptoms would be very helpful, would possibly even save your life. Depends on how good you are at. But yet, whenever you're just trying to go to school and you're just trying to have a date with your spouse, or you're just trying to play pickleball. I just signed up a guy who's like a pickleball champion, which is pretty cool. I barely even know what pickleball is. But anyway, whenever you're just trying to go to the gym or hang out with friends or just live your life, and you've got these symptoms showing up that are designed to mitigate the pain of being eaten by a lion or empowering you to fight or flee from a lion, it's really, really scary. And because people don't have proper education, they think, oh goodness, my brain must be broken. But what I do with people is I direct them away from the symptoms, and I tell them these symptoms are a lot like a check engine light on a car. They are a sign that there's work that needs to be done underneath the hood. And the hood is metaphorical for your body and your life. There's a lot happening in your body and in your life that needs to be addressed, because there are things that are conveying threat to the nervous system. So much so that your body is going into fight, flight, freeze response on a continual basis. You're in a threat response when there isn't any threat. And we need to make adjustments so that way we are conveying safety to the nervous system instead of threat. That's really what recovery looks like. But as long as you're in friendly fire and you're trying to out logic and outthink your symptoms, and you're trying to accept them or distract away from them, and you have a symptom-centric approach to this, you're picking apples off an apple tree. At best, maybe you'll pick the apples and there's a little space before they grow back again. That space represents, for some of you, you will get breaks from symptoms. Maybe it'll last a few years. I say that all the time. But you're not actually getting to the roots of the tree, which is by dealing with the things that are happening in your body and life that are keeping your nervous system in constant fight, flight, freeze response. And that requires a cost. You might have to walk away from some people. You might have to change jobs. Probably not change jobs, but it may happen. You're going to have to prioritize sleep. You're going to have to listen to your body and not muscle your way through life. You're going to have to get in tune with your body because you're probably up here all the time. And there's a lot happening in your body that you're not aware of. Whenever people first work with me, so often they're like, oh, no, I don't think I've got all... You talk about all that tension and energy and emotion. And then they work with me for like 3 weeks, and then I help them build interoception, which is the experience of the embodied self. And they're like, oh, my gosh, I had no idea that all this stuff was happening. I'm like, yeah, it's because you've been up here. And that doesn't make you a bad person. In fact, this is a good thing. You figured out how to make yourself feel better. As long as I'm up here daydreaming in the clouds, thinking about random stuff or the past or the future, maybe obsessing over existence or my health, or some people throw themselves into their career, or some people throw themselves into acquiring academic knowledge, or, you know, this thing or that thing, or social media. As long as I'm scrolling on TikTok, I don't have to be in here. I don't have to be in my body. And then also inevitably, you're doing a lot of stuff to numb your body, right? Could be food, it could be porn, it could be nicotine, it could be drugs, it could be trying to think, alcohol, it could be all kinds of things. What are these things for? They are mitigation strategies. That's you trying to get back to balance. We are wired for homeostasis. Whenever the nervous system gets out of balance, we will naturally try to get back into balance, even if getting back into balance requires us to do things that are not healthy. Which technically it doesn't, but we don't know that because we don't teach people how to self-regulate. We don't teach people about what the actual roots are, and we give them all these labels, we pathologize them, and we tell them that the best that they can do is manage their symptoms. And then all of a sudden, they're in a one-on-one war. They're in friendly fire with something that's not even the issue. That's a whole nother video. So you already know how to make yourself feel better. Let's see that as a skill set. So now all that we need to do is just change how you're making yourself feel better. Instead of looking to numbness and dissociation, numbing your body and doing things to keep you in your head, we're going to actually deal with the things that are happening in your body and your life that are making you need to look to these things. And all of a sudden, we're dealing with the root. But the good news is you already know if I do something, it makes me feel better. We just have to change what that something is. The fact of the matter is, you have what it takes. Your body has a built-in capacity to triumph over these symptoms, but you're never going to get there as long as you are trying to get rid of the symptoms directly. You're picking apples off an apple tree. It's friendly fire. It's literally a waste of your time. We need to look underneath the hood. And what we may find is that there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. And you have to be willing to pay that price to really get to the root and achieve long-term recovery, right? I tell people, recovery is not the biggest, most recent break from symptoms that you've had, even if that break has been years. True recovery is whenever you've lifted up the hood, metaphorically speaking, and you've addressed the things happening in your body and in your life that are triggering symptoms, and you know for sure that you're living a preventative lifestyle that's going to keep the symptoms from ever showing up ever again. And if you're interested in doing that, I've created a free masterclass. It's called the 5 Shifts to Heal from Trauma, Anxiety, Panic, and Depersonalization Realization. There's a link below. Check it out. I will go over the 5 shifts that you need to make to start getting to the root of your symptoms. But don't watch that unless you're ready to pay the price, because I'm telling you, you are going to have to make some adjustments. There's no magical button that's going to make this go away. But if you're willing to pay that cost, you can not just overcome symptoms, but you can experience post-traumatic growth, which is where you walk away even stronger and more resilient than you've ever been. I see it all the time. I'm living that life, and I help people see that all the time. But you got to get fed up. You got to take all that frustration that you're feeling towards the symptoms and the way that your life is and funnel that into action, that I'm actually going to deal with the root. And if you're ready for that, watch that webinar. It will change your life. All right, that is it. If this helped you and you're ready to actually deal with the root, click that like button. Subscribe if you're needing help healing from any of these symptoms. Share this video with anybody that you think would help, and I hope you have an amazing day. Talk to you soon.